just wanted to kind of kick things off a little bit. And this is more of a curiosity than anything else. It seemed to me that in the news release for the recent changes in Spotify trans media, the reference to was to audio shows rather than a podcast, and I'm wondering if that was deliberate.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us probably agree, right? Podcast was created, 15 years ago when Apple launched this. I think we feel it's a bit of an outdated label on what I think is some special content. So we also want to leave room for shows that perhaps don't fit exactly into the podcast box. So that was actually deliberate. We want to bring a sort of a 21st century look at this form of content.
Sounds like audio shows to me.
You know, it does not that complicated.
Yeah. Now I know it's new, the changes that you've made in terms of the video and the partner arrangements, and I know you're limited in what data you might have. Mm-hmm. Have you gleaned anything yet from the people it's rolled out to?
Yeah, unfortunately, just because of lack of time, we haven't. What I can tell you, we get a lot of questions around, hey, is this in response to what Apple's going to announce? It's really in response to what our users have asked for, right? We have an extremely close relationship, and we protect that Spotify user at all costs. What they have said to us is, we want more than music. We love what you do. We'll pay the $9.99 a month, or we'll come in through the free tier, but we would love it if you can surface some interesting snackable video content and podcast content for us. So I think we'll have in Hivio 2016 a lot more to share. Just don't have a ton yet because it's only a couple weeks old.
So that's interesting, and this came up yesterday. The degree to which people want and expect content that is different from that which they originally came there for. We talked yesterday about, Apple has their podcast app and they have iTunes, and the two live in separate universes. You're merging those universes, and you're saying that's what your consumers are telling you.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they need to be different. What we've made a bet, if you look at the Spotify journey, it went from this kind of search and play library of music to curation. We bought a company called Tunigo a couple of years ago that got us into the curation business, and now we're into the programming journey of Spotify. So programming moments and content for different times of day, that's what we're into now. That content doesn't have to be all music, Mark, and so we feel very strongly about that. So we're moving into it. We could not do this without the benefit of the first-party reg data and the Econest data. So we feel we can actually take the model that we built for music and apply it to video and podcast.
As you know, a lot of the industry press likes to refer to anything Apple does as a blank killer.
Yes.
And the latest nom de plume is Spotify killer.
Yes.
What's your expectation next week when they make their announcement for Beats?
We feel, I guess I'd echo Duncan's comments, we actually feel it's going to be great for Spotify. Every time a competitor launches something new, we tend to get a bump, right? I think it really, particularly with Apple, with all the assets that they have, the fact that they're getting into the streaming audio game, we think gives a promotional boost to the space. All boats will rise. So we actually feel that's what's going to happen here. I guess I would add some pause to the any killer of Apple. I mean, think of what happened with iTunes Radio. Pandora did not go away. Pandora got stronger, as a matter of fact. So I think there's room for a lot of players here. I will tell you, this is not easy to do. Doing music in an on-demand form where you have discovery, social features is just not easy. It takes big investment. Certainly Apple has that, but it also takes really good tech. And it has to be done with a element of authenticity, and it's got to be genuine. It can't just be, and certainly what's happening now with Tidal, I'll let you come to your own conclusions on that. But
I already have.
Yeah, it can't be just about stars. That's not what millennials are looking for. So we actually feel whatever an Apple is going to announce next week will rise all boats.
When Taylor Swift pulled her stuff off Spotify, what happened to Spotify usage?
Well, our numbers are public, and you can see the numbers have continued to go up, both in subscriptions and free tier. That being said, we would love Taylor to be back. I think Taylor's fans want her back on the service. We're working hard to do that. We're trying to educate artists every day. We have a huge artist relations team that tries to educate artists on how Spotify works, how to connect them better with our fans. We're hopeful we can get her back. We're encouraged, though, that the numbers keep going up into the right direction.
Yeah, you'd think they'd want to be part of that.
You would think, and hopefully, part of this is just working out this disruptive phase that we're in at the moment, and we're encouraged that hopefully we can get her back.
At this point, as you know, Spotify is still not in the black, still losing money. The last figure I have is $200 million on revenues of $1.3 billion, which are a lot of revenues.
Yep.
How and when do you see that turning around, or specifically when do you see it turning around?
Yeah, I'm not sure there's a date. To be honest with you, Mark, we're thankful to have a couple of things in place. One is a visionary founder in Daniel Ek. Two is a patient set of investors that realize that our money is getting plowed into global expansion over 58 countries, content acquisition, and money into the technology. So could we be profitable tomorrow? Honestly, we could. I mean, that's really not the goal of the company at the moment.
If you wanted to release that news right now, please do.
At hivio, it's just not a strategic direction for us. I mean, certainly we want to be profitable. We want to run a business that is self-sustainable. But in order to really get music out to the world, to invest in content, to keep your tech where it needs to be, to make acquisitions like the Echo Nest and Tunigo, you got to invest money there.
I want to ask you the same question I asked Duncan, which is, people in the terrestrial radio space may see Spotify as the enemy. Is Spotify the enemy? Is terrestrial radio the enemy? Are there ways to collaborate? Are there ways to partner?
I think listen, right now, one of our partners in the podcast content is CBS Radio. So, we feel that we can partner with a number of the radio companies on having their content be surfaced to millennials in creative ways. I don't think we're the enemy at all. We actually value what radio does. It's a very small proposition on Spotify. We have the radio feature. It's only about 10% of what we do. So we actually feel we're doing something very distinct from what radio is doing. Having the kind of the on-demand functionality that Spotify brings, the curation, the programming, the Echo Nest, I think it's very separate, but possibly supplemental to what radio's doing.
Does anybody have a question for Brian Benedik? Great opportunity with Brian sitting on this stage.
I know it was a quick statement, but you said, Brian, that you're not aiming to be strategically profitable. Strategically, you're aiming for something else. How long will what's the balancing act there? Because many of us don't have deep pockets and venture capital to keep going.
I think we have a patient board, and they realize that we got some very smart people on the board, and again, and a CEO and a founder that realizes that investment is needed to keep this thing growing. So I'm not sure what the timeline is. And I want to be clear, we would love to be profitable.
Sure.
And will be at some point. I'm just not sure if that's in 6 months, 18 months, or 3 years. Not sure.
How long of a vision timeline do you have? Yesterday, Tom spoke about vision and compelling beliefs. What's the stated Spotify vision for 1, 3, 5, 10 years? How far down the road are you looking?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty well noted that Daniel Ek, could have unloaded this thing a number of different times, and he feels that there is something very special about what we're doing, and the idea of being a content platform now where music and video can live, to do it in ways that are social and shareable is really where the world's going, right? Having partners like I mentioned earlier with Starbucks and Uber and the OEMs, that's special, and I think he's in this for the long run. That's the vision that he has, and so we'll see where it goes.
Any other questions for Brian?
So the game changer to me seems to be in-dash. For you guys, is that it? Like, are you guys just lining up so that when every car has an in-dash player, you're there?
That's certainly the ambition. I mean, game changer. I think it's part of the distribution strategy. Talk to millennials these days. They don't necessarily want to own cars. They don't want to lease cars. They want to take Ubers.
They don't want to own
or
anything.
Lyfts. They don't want to own anything. So, as important as it is to get into the dash, it's also important to work with Uber. It's important to work with Starbucks and other retailers. So when you go into a Starbucks, you have an amazing music experience there. So, but clearly, we're now moving quickly on the auto front.
Okay, so then to expand on that, do you move beyond millennials when you do go in dash? Do you start to expand your audience reach? So you're focused on millennials now. You've got the millennials.
Yep.
Is there value in you having outside the millennials, the older audience?
I certainly, and we hope, like Facebook has, right? They started off with sort of that young segment of millennials and then expanded to people like me and others. So we see that trajectory coming. You talk to a millennial now, most of them know about Spotify. You talk to a parent in their 40s and 50s, I'm not sure that they do. We know we've done it right when that parent says, yeah, I know about Spotify, and I'm using it. So we're looking for the trajectory of Facebook.
What do advertisers value most about the Spotify experience?
Yeah, I think, Mark, what I mentioned before, engagement. Advertisers, I think an admission pass to working with any publisher or radio station or TV station is scale of audience. There's a lot of scale out there.
Yes.
But what they love about Spotify is that users are spending 2.5 hours a day with the platform. So really for them, it's, God, I can do some really interesting things with this audience. I also can do some diversified things in terms of media, branded content, open API work. So I think it's probably twofold. It's the engagement of the user, and it's sort of the 4 or 5 ways I can activate Spotify audience.
As someone whose history on the radio side was really built around reach, now you're in a place where there's this value on engagement. What lesson is there in that for you?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you from talking to a lot of agencies and brands, and again, Kirsten's coming up here soon, so I'd be interested to hear from her. Engagement is becoming more important, frankly, than scale. So what brands are starting to look at is, hey, I used to want the platform that just had all this audience. But frankly, even if you have all this registered users, but none of them are active, who cares, right? So it's all about activating the audience. I mean, we are maniacal at Spotify about acquisition, activation, and retention. We've got a whole team that focuses just on that. The idea of getting somebody in the door, getting them active, and retaining them. So for brands, I think that's a huge benefit.
Brian Benedik from Spotify. Brian, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome.